Hi, everyone. I'm Ashley McManus, Director of Marketing at Affectiva. Welcome to Affectiva Asks, a human-centric AI podcast, where each episode we will interview a thought leader doing cutting-edge work in the AI space. A little bit about us. Affectiva is the pioneer of emotion AI, software that can detect nuanced human emotions, complex cognitive states, behaviors, activities, and interactions. And Affectiva is applying this technology to optimize brand content and media spend by measuring consumer emotional responses to videos, ads, and TV shows, unobtrusively and at scale. Today's episode features Paige Guge, design researcher at Vidlet, and Affectiva's media analytics account director, Duckett. Paige is a trained researcher experienced in utilizing a multi-methodological approach to research with an expertise in qualitative design. Alex is an experienced client partner across blue chip and startup clients alike. He supports clients through an onboarding, training, and application of emotion AI insights. In our interview with Paige and Alex, we discuss their respective backgrounds and current roles, as well as their thoughts around integrating qualitative, quantitative, and facial coding observations data for partners to have a holistic feedback and understand what changes they need to make to their content to ensure it lands with their target audience. Let's listen in on their interview to learn more. Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. With me today, I have Paige Guge, design researcher at Vidlet, joining Affectiva's own Alex Duckett, account director of media analytics. Thank you both so much for making the time to speak with me today. All right. So, Paige, to start, tell us about your background. How has your career path taken you to Vidlet, and what is your current role?
Yeah, thank you, Ashley. I'll start with my educational background. I have a graduate degree in social personality and affective sciences, where I did a lot of work in detecting emotion through the things that people say qualitatively and using that in conjunction with quantitative methods. So that really was where my passion for this type of work was born. From grad school, I went into a marketing research role where I enjoyed the work, but discovered that I wanted something a little bit more human driven. It was very kind of data driven, or I should say quantitative data driven, and I wanted to move a little bit into more humanistic data, and that's how I found Vidlet, where I work with human centered data every day now.
Excellent. Okay, so Alex, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your role at Affectiva and your background?
Lovely. Thank you, Ashley. Yes, so my background similarly is in the social sciences. So out of university, it's probably a bit of a cliche in the field, but driven by and interested in what people think and feel. So I actually started working in political and social research, first of all, and then moved into the communication space a little bit more broadly. So really interested, again, similar to Paige, in sort of what motivates people in what they think and feel, their underlying emotions. So worked in a number of different insights and analytic roles related to that. And so most recently, I was really excited to join the team here at Affectiva, picking up the media analytics role that I have, because what I do here is manage our clients, but also help train them and really help them get the most out of the Affectiva technology in a way in which it really adds value to their organization and helps them answer their underlying business questions. So, yeah.
Great. So back to Paige. For those who are unfamiliar with Vidlet, can you explain briefly what your offerings are?
Yeah, so Vidlet is a insights company where we use the power of mobile video to learn how customers think, feel, and behave in their natural environment. And so we really use three main types of studies. The most common one that we do is what we would call an empathy study. Mm-hmm. And the goals of an empathy study are really just to learn needs, pain points, and delights from a customer. I'll give an example of this. We did one with ostomy patients where, using Vidlet's mobile video platform, ostomy patients were able to show their at-home ostomy systems, learn about their medical needs, learn what worked well when they're operating this complex medical equipment in their own home. And so really able to kind of see their natural day-to-day environment and learn how that can be improved for them. The second one is we do a lot of concept testing, so showing products, low fidelity ideas for apps and digital services and things like that, and can have people record their responses, their instant kind of immediate feedback to these concepts and ideas. And the third one is diary studies, where we'll do studies with people over a longer period of time. An example of this, kind of also matched with the product concept testing, is we did one with ovens. And so 25 people were sent brand new ovens, and we watched them use these ovens, navigate them, use apps associated with these ovens over the course of 3 weeks. And so really the goal of Vidlet is just to use these cell phones that we have on us every day to get into people's lives and understand the kind of how they feel, what they think, and be able to see them in their natural environment and understand them as consumers that way.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So another question for both of you, maybe we'll start with you, Alex. With your knowledge and expertise, what would you say some of the biggest challenges are for those who work in the advertising space today?
Thanks, Ashley. I think that's a really big question and a really challenging question. And in the interest of time, I'm going to probably narrow it a little bit, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
I could go off on tangents all day perhaps on that, but I think looking at it through a data or insights and technology lens, I think making sense of data in a way in which you can look at the right types of data source to answer your business question or your underlying question. And I think in order to do that, what I think is really, really important is using data that enhances creativity and has a respect for the underlying creative process. Mm-hmm. So there's loads and loads of exciting technology out there, but what I feel really passionate about is that we need space for storytelling and understanding how those big creative ideas work at an emotional level. And to be honest with you, that's what attracted me about Affectiva in the first place. When I was working the other side of the fence, buying Affectiva as a client, it left space for the human at the end of the process, right? So you're examining emotion AI data, but you're doing it in a way in which there's space for the human at the end to really understand context and get the most out of the data in that context, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Paige, do you have anything to add?
I mean, you said it perfectly. I think storytelling is exactly what Vidlet's in the business of as well. And I think that's why our kind of data worked so well together, is we really are putting the human first and leaving room for telling compelling stories and gaining insight that way. I completely agree.
Excellent. So you both came together to present a talk for Quirks this year. I was wondering if you could give us a high-level description of the background of your presentation and what you were looking to solve for.
So the goal of the project that Affectiva and Vidlet worked on together was to take a piece of content. In this case, it was a trailer for an upcoming movie, mm-hmm. and to really understand in a holistic way how this trailer was going to land in the market with consumers, who it was meant for, what are the reactions to it, both the thoughts on the film in general, but also the editing of the trailer. How could they prepare more to take this film into the market? And really the goal was to both see this and use kind of quantitative, robust data, and also hear from people. So really get this full scope of understanding, how this film was going to land with consumers. It's a unique trailer. It is unlike any genre that's really been out there. They weren't really sure how to describe it. So they really wanted to see from every angle how people were going to take to this piece of content.
Awesome. Alex, anything to add for that?
I think from our perspective at Affectiva, we sort of our agenda as well was driven by perhaps trying to push methodologies on in this space, or even disrupt the way we understand creative content, such as a movie trailer. So specifically, many people will be familiar with the dial test that often gets used in this area. So, simply someone's watching a film or a film trailer and they're turning a dial to the right or left, depending upon how interested they are in it. And I think our view would be that will be, a really relevant an insightful source of data to use that type of method. But what we wanted to do with our technology was just demonstrate that you can get so much more through an understanding of, in the moment, facial response, emotional response as people are watching different types of content. We can then get to the areas that will hopefully unlock doors a little bit further, such as, what someone is really feeling in that moment, because by the time your brain's had a chance to think and turn a dial one way or another, all the sort of social norms, cultural biases, all those things are having an impact on why you're turning it one way or another. So it's not to challenge the appropriateness of doing that, but really to add another angle to emotional understanding in that context.
Yeah, and I'd love to talk about, what the methodology was. So can you speak a little bit deeper on, what this process kind of looked like and how Affectiva and Vidlet worked together to get these kind of results?
Yes, I think it's fair to say we provided the building blocks to the insights that we were generating in the first instance. And then Paige and the team at Vidlet brought together multiple data sources to really, really make sense of it. But thinking about the Affectiva data specifically, so our emotion AI data specifically, what we were very much focused on was getting a real life understanding of viewers consuming content in their own environment. So at the most basic level, we just had a web link that a viewer would click on their own device, on their tablet, on their mobile, whatever it would be, and they would watch their content as they would normally, sat on the sofa in their sort of real life environment. And what we're doing whilst that is happening is leveraging the camera on that device to understand their moment by moment reactions based on their facial expression or expressions. So we can then create, using our software, we can then understand exactly what they were feeling in each and every moment. So we could get a really rich picture of exactly what specific moments were being felt as different things were happening during that trailer experience. And what we're able to do in that way is draw on a huge data set. So really diverse in terms of demographics, different cultural or market groups. And so we could use that big database of over 50,000 videos to really get a full contextual understanding of how viewers were feeling during that whole experience. And then I think, it was with that data, that unbiased emotional response that we were able to feed in to the wider process that Vidlet were managing. So we're obviously not bringing a lot of the whys and in the consumer's own words, but we could certainly be able to then show, okay, so what were people feeling in each and every moment?
Awesome. Paige, I don't know if you had anything to add on how you guys worked with Affectiva.
Yeah, so that was, as Alex explained, really the first step into this kind of holistic insight outcome that we've been talking about. And from there, so right after the viewers watched the content, we had them open their Vidlet app and talk about what they saw. So it was kind of that twofold. We're getting the what are they feeling, and then we're immediately hearing the why behind it and getting those instant reactions in their own words after providing the kind of rich AI showing what they were feeling. And so right after they, watched the content, we had them answer also a few just scaled survey questions, which we also used in our analysis, and then had them answer a set of 15 open-ended qualitative responses, asking about the why, what they liked, what they didn't like, what could have made it better, and how they see themselves, if they even see themselves seeing this content in the future.
Yeah, and this might be for you, Paige, but during the presentation, I know you had showed some videos of several different people sharing their feedback. Can you give a couple of examples or summarize, what their thoughts were around the trailer?
Yeah, so a few interesting things that we learned from analyzing the data from this study was that there were some groups that this trailer absolutely landed with, and there were some that it absolutely did not land with. And a good example would be the client for this project wasn't quite sure what the rating system should be, so they were really interested in like how young is too young for this type of content. And we learned that 13 and under, it was the plot and everything was just completely lost on them. They were actually rather scared throughout it and confused, which it was very cool that we were able to see that in Affectiva's analysis of this demographic group of this 13 and under, specifically for boys, 13 and under boys, being able to see that emotional response. And then also hear it from these young boys saying, I was just scared. It was over my head. I don't know what I was watching. And you can just tell when they're trying to explain the plot that they have no idea what was happening. And they were rather afraid throughout it. And on the contrary, kind of that middle-aged, late teens, early 20s group, we're just, we have videos of them just being, really intrigued by the trailer. Maybe they wanted a little bit more of the plot along the way, but overall we could hear them kind of really correspond with what we were seeing in those spikes in the Affectiva outcome of where they were interested and where we lost them and where we can gain them back in.
Mm-hmm. Another question for Alex. How can technology complement qual researchers and the work that they do?
So I think, first of all, technology needs to respect the qual process. And by that, I mean, qual researchers, as sort of I see them, are often very intuitive in terms of, picking up on emotions and the underlying emotions of viewers. So in this context, what we need our technology to do is not tell a radically different story, but rather support them in their storytelling. And what our tech can do in that way is bring a layer of, I think, scientific validity to what they're probably feeling anyway in a particular context. And it can just give them that, reassurance, but indeed also, pinpoint things that might have got missed in the room, or, that might not have come out in a conversation. We are fundamentally talking about two different data sets or ways of thinking, really. And so, bringing out that system one, that intuitive response, it gives the qual researcher a good steer on that underlying immediate emotional response. And I think, at its best, it should then be another tool in their armory to bring together all the different bits of data that they're having to synthesize in their head. But I don't know, Paige, would that accurately reflect how you're using it?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think, especially with qualitative, they can always be strengthened by adding quantitative. And I think vice versa. I think just when you use multiple robust measures together, you can only have a greater, more nuanced, more complex, more deeper insight story. And I think in this case, they both work extremely well together. As we said, they're both very human-centered, but in very different ways. And I think they can only gain more from being used together.
Interesting. Okay. So another question, I think, for you, Paige. How did the COVID pandemic influence the research design?
Yeah, so when this project came to us, it was an interesting time because it was kind of in that point of the pandemic where it was getting to like, oh, we're going to be in this for a while. We're here. It's not just a 1 month thing. And so the way people were viewing films is very, very different. It was becoming very different. It was a lot more of movies that would go to the theater being released straight to streaming sites, or you rent them on Apple TV or whatever it may be. And so they wanted to see how this kind of more actiony, high-paced movie, one that would probably be favored in a movie theater if it wasn't the current times that we're in, would be taken in an at-home environment. So you can actually have people watch this trailer, in the same context where they may very well end up watching this film, because movie theaters are still not open in a lot of places currently in the States. And so we were not only able to obtain those insights from the home environment, but we really had no choice, where we can't have a focus group where you get everyone together, or you have a focus group at the movie theater where you do a free showing and have people do a rating. I think it actually worked to our advantage in that, where it is where we were able to have people watch it in the environment that they may very well see it in. And so it had a huge impact on the project. And it, I think, really showed the power of having tools like Affectiva and Vidlet, where you can obtain these insights in people's natural environment and in their homes.
So I have a couple of questions. I open it up to both of you guys. So, what are some of the limits of collecting demographic responses? How can we create an emotional segmentation? And why do we even need a new approach to understanding trailer and creative content?
In terms of how I'd answer that question is, I think what we discovered through this whole process was that just by focusing on demographic criteria alone, that gives you a really simplistic and kind of misleading picture of things. So it just feels very reductive to start with a premise or a proposition that, as a 18 to 34-year-old, I was going to say, man, that isn't me. I'm a little bit older, sadly, but in terms of whatever demographic, subset you fit into, that your views on a particular film or a particular genre or emotional response more broadly can be sort of neatly understood by that label. And I think by certainly looking at our data from this, you could see that there were distinct and different types of emotional response, but you couldn't just neatly segment them in that way. There was much more to it than that. It was much more layered than that. And then that's what, it was really interesting for me to then see the Vidlet layer on things when they started to pull apart those different threads that really separated people and united people in terms of their different responses. But it was, I don't know, my take would be, it'd be way too simplistic just to say this demographic criteria that defines your response.
Yeah, Paige, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the most kind of profound and room for opportunity emotional segmentation that we had the group that we called the intrigued viewer. And they were someone who, when they watched this trailer, it had them, they were intrigued, but there was a specific moment in which they were lost, and it kind of changed the way that they perceived it. And if they would go see it, like they were the opportunity group, we also could have called them. And I think it was really amazing to hear from some of these people that, I like the beginning, but then I don't know. And then we can actually see on the Affectiva analysis exactly where these people all of a sudden kind of disengaged emotionally with the trailer, and hearing, why did you disengage? Well, it became too sexual, or the music was too crazy. And it's like, okay, we can come back from that and say, here's the exact point you're losing people, and here's why. Mm-hmm. And that's something I think that just looking at them demographically alone, you would never be able to kind of get those rich group insights and understand your viewer in that way.
Cool. So also for Alex and Paige, I'll let you chime in if you have any thoughts here, but how do you integrate all of this data? So qualitative, quantitative, and facial coding observations in a way that the partner has holistic feedback and understands, what changes to make to their content to ensure that it lands with their target audience?
So I think from the Affectiva side, what we very much try and do is make that process as easy and as seamless as we possibly can for the end user. So our core dashboard, where we'd be bringing out all these insights and all these deliverables, allows for the joining and the integration of different data sources, right? So specifically what I mean by that is that our unfiltered in the moment emotional response can be connected to other more considered variables. So that could be a demographic characteristic, it could be a response to a survey question. So you can then start to see literally moment by moment how different types of viewer or different responses to different questions are driving that underlying emotion response. So by bringing those points together, we can then start to see how the picture unfolds. And just from a personal perspective, I was sort of super excited when I saw the segmentation that the Vidlet guys had applied to our data, because it just took it a whole step further in terms of what you could do. Great.
This was awesome. Based on your work, if you had one takeaway for the audience listening today, what would you like to tell them?
I really believe that, like Alex said, there's so many methodologies out there, but I think any time that you can take one methodology and use it with others, there's absolutely no downfall to doing that. In my eye, you're only going to create a more nuanced story, which is only going to be a better deliverable for a partner, for a client. It's only going to help you understand it deeper, and it really help in this case bring something to the market with a deeper understanding of exactly what you need to do to make that successful. And so I just think any time that we can use methodologies like qualitative and quantitative or facial expression with qualitative, whatever it may be, it only is going to be, to your advantage and create a richer, deeper, more complex story and understanding.
I agree very much with what Paige said, particularly on the importance of the nuance point, because my response to that question, as you asked it, Ashley, was just that, there isn't a silver bullet, to be honest. And I'm suspicious of silver bullet, one approach, one type of question, will help you answer these challenges. And so what I thought was great about the Vidlet approach was that it looked at and took into account what a data source is telling you, but also what it isn't telling you. Mm-hmm. And then if you're honest and thoughtful about each individual one, you can piece together that multi-layered story in the way in which Paige was just describing. So I think, just being critical about different methods, but really focusing on, right, this can really tell us this powerfully, but not X, Y, and Z. And then you piece the whole thing together and you get to a much deeper, more valuable place as Paige described.
Awesome. Great. So for our listeners, can you let us know where they can go to learn more, or do you have any other call to action for them?
So for me, it's simple. I think if you could just, go to the Affectiva.com website, or to get in touch with me personally, I'm alex.duckett, that's DUCKETT, at Affectiva.com.
Yeah, and likewise for me, pretty simple, Vidlet.com to learn more about what we do. And I'm Paige at Vidlet, Paige.
Awesome. And if you are listening prior to February 24th at 8 a.m., they are presenting their Quirks presentation on segmenting viewers based on blending qualitative and emotion AI insights. So definitely check it out. It's super interesting. And that is all I had for you guys today. Paige and Alex, once again, thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure speaking to you both.
Thank you.
To Paige's point, there are so many methodologies out there, and any time that you can take one methodology and pair it with others, there's no downfall to combining them to create a more nuanced story for a better deliverable. This type of emotional segmentation, made possible by Vidlet and Affectiva, helps trailer content creators, for example, make their content more successful by giving them a better sense of what needs to be done to successfully bring their content to the market. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe to Affectiva's Human-Centric AI podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts for new episodes. We are also on social media, so please reach out to us on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Affectiva to share any feedback you have on the show and weigh in on the discussion using hashtag AffectivaAsks. Don't forget to rate us and comment with your feedback to help make the podcast more discoverable for others. Until next time, thanks for listening.